What's good, guys? This is Al B back with another video. Today I'm going to be sharing with you the best MIDI keyboard for FL Studio. Now I know I said the best MIDI keyboard, but I'm actually going to be covering two different keyboards today, and I'll tell you why. The first keyboard that I'm going to cover is going to be for those of you who are looking for a smaller, portable, and more affordable keyboard. The second keyboard I'm going to cover is going to be for those of you who are looking for a larger, full-size keyboard and who may have a larger budget. So depending on which one of those two situations you fit into, you're going to be able to see the best MIDI keyboard for your situation. Before we get into it though, you already know, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button so I can keep bringing you guys this good content, all right? Without further ado, this is Al B, and let's get into it. Yes, sir. Now, if you've been following me for any amount of time, this first one should not come as a surprise. The best mini 25 key keyboard for FL Studio is the Akai MPK Mini MK3. Now, this keyboard is awesome for a lot of reasons. One reason is you actually have your pitch bend and your modulation wheel into one control, and that's the joystick. Now that's weird for a lot of people, and it was weird for me at first too, but over time I found that it actually helped me be more creative, and I actually didn't mind it after a while. So that is one thing to think about when you're looking at these keyboards. If you think that's gonna bother you, then I would suggest maybe another keyboard, but for me, it was never a problem. It actually helped and was kind of a cool difference from other keyboards that I had tried. Another thing is the drum pads. The drum pads on this are just excellent. If you've ever used like a real MPC or any of the other Akai controllers, then you know how awesome they are at making drum pads. The touch, the feel, the sensitivity of those things are absolutely crazy. And it doesn't hurt that they have a red backlight, which is pretty awesome when you're tapping out your drums. So those are definitely clutch. When it comes to the knobs, these knobs are also just the best of any controller that I've used for a few reasons. For one, they're infinity knobs. That's a big deal because with infinity knobs, when you turn them, they change your parameters based on relative value. And what that means is if you say save the project one night and you opened it up the next day and say you were trying to just adjust the wet signal on something, with these infinity knobs, if you just turn the knob a little bit, then it'll adjust your wet signal a little bit. On the contrary, if you had like not infinity knobs or absolute value knobs, when you go to change those, then sometimes it makes the software jump to where the controller is when you were just trying to make a small adjustment to that setting or to that wet signal, whatever the case may be. So the infinity knobs are really clutch for that reason. On top of that, they're actually really smooth, so you can have some good control, and they're big enough for big hands like mine so that you can have that fine control without cramping your hands up trying to be delicate and turn it. So super smooth, big enough for big hands, and they're infinity knobs. So the knobs on the MK3 are excellent. Can't say enough about the knobs or the pads. The keys are also really nice. They are slightly springy, just to be honest about it. They're a little bit springy, so if that's going to be a problem for you, that's just something to be aware of. But I've tried out a lot of different 25 key version keyboards, and this key bed is just as good, if not better, than the rest of those. So not a big deal for me. In addition to the hardware, you also get some free software, which includes the hybrid VST, which is just a synthesizer VST. You get a mini grand VST, which is a grand piano. And then you also get Velvet, which is an electric piano VST. These all three come included with the Akai MPK MK3. Also, you're going to get some sound packs, some production sound packs for lo-fi, for trap, and I think some soul as well. Really good sound packs, really good starter packs. So definitely a value add as well to this. Before we cover this next keyboard, I do want to make one quick call out. Whether you get one of the two keyboards that I'm covering today, or whether you go get a totally different keyboard, you will find that none of them come with good mappings for FL Studio out of the box. So for that reason, I have made custom templates for the two that I'm covering today, as well as for some of the other more popular keyboards. If you're curious about how I use these keyboards with FL Studio, I'm going to put a link on screen as well as put a link in the description to where you can go check that out and use one of my custom templates if you would like. Now, I do want to say again, you don't have to use a custom template to use these keyboards. They will work for the most part, but I found that to get the full functionality, to get the full value out of these keyboards, a custom template is the best route. But enough about that. Let's go ahead and talk about the best full-sized MIDI keyboard for FL Studio. The best full-size keyboard for FL Studio is the Arturia Keylab MK2. Now, first of all, the quality of build for this thing is excellent. The body is made from aluminum, and when you touch it and feel it, you can tell that it's a quality build. It has some good weight to it, so it feels like you're using a real instrument and doesn't have a plasticky feel at all. I've used this next to some other expensive synthesizers that cost thousands of dollars, and this one feels just as good, if not better than some of those. Some of the features of the hardware include the 16 RGB backlit drum pads, so you can make those whatever color that you want them to be, and they feel pretty good, second only to Akai's drum pads. Moving over more, you can see your DAW commands, and that's for different DAWs, obviously. If you have Studio One or other DAWs besides FL Studio, you can get some really nice mappings to those DAW commands, so you can solo, you can mute, you can record, you can even turn off and turn on the metronome and do some different things like that. So that's a really cool feature of the hardware. Moving down right below that, you have your transport controls, your rewind, fast forward, play, pause, record, and things like that. That's a nice feature as well on the hardware that you don't get on some controllers. In the center, you have this kind of a big knob and a few buttons as well, which are mainly used for navigating the different presets. And if you do like Analog Lab, then you can sync this directly with Analog Lab, which we're going to talk about in just a second as well. So this is really nice as well for navigating presets, for changing the different modes on the keyboard, whether you're using Analog Lab mode, DAW mode, or whether you're using user mode, which will be your own custom template. Moving over to the right, you have 8 infinity knobs, and as we talked about earlier in the video, infinity knobs are great. They give you a much better control over your software, and it doesn't cause your parameters to jump around whenever you change it with the software trying to keep up with where the MIDI keyboard is. Right below those knobs, you have 8 fader knobs as well. The 8 faders are really useful for just what you would expect them for using them against tracks in the mixer or whatever you want to assign them to. They're really smooth, really solid, and they work great. Right below that, you have 8 track buttons. These buttons can be programmed to do a number of different things like soloing or muting out different tracks in your mixer or whatever it is that you would like to do with them. You can customize it using the MIDI control center. Let's talk about the software. You get Analog Lab, which is one of the best VSTs that I've used, and honestly, it's one of my top 3 VSTs as far as how often I use it in my tracks. You also get Stage 73, which is an electric piano VST. You get B3, which is an electric organ VST, and you get the Mini V3, which is really an emulation of the classic Mini Moog synth. And one of the key features of the keyboard actually is the chord mode. So you can use the drum pads and trigger record, or you can use the keys and trigger record, and both of them are programmable, so you can program your own chords and trigger them with a pad or with the key if you would like to do that. Now, this keyboard does cost about $500, which is not the cheapest keyboard, but when you consider the software that you get, the build of this keyboard, and how it feels, I definitely think it's worth $500 if you have it in your budget. So I would definitely say this is the best full-size MIDI keyboard for FL Studio. All right, guys, I hope you found the video helpful. Make sure you hit that like button. Make sure you hit that subscribe button so that I can keep bringing you guys this good content, all right? Drop a comment below. Let me know what you think. Are you gonna get one of these keyboards? Do you already have one of these keyboards? Or what is your favorite keyboard? Drop a comment and let me know. Until next time, this is Al B, and we are out. Yes, sir.